Welcome to today's video. Today, I'm going to take you through a 3-step process to developing more wealth in your life. Let's dive in. I've been doing a lot of coaching recently with people on different programs that I have around money and money mindset. And where I come from, I had to really work on myself a lot. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the mindset of money. And I'm also going to talk to you about the actual strategic way of how to make more and develop wealth. Where I came from, I had a lot of fear and I had a lot of scarcity around money. And making money is a skill set to be learned. But really, before we dive into it, I want to take a step back and make you understand that money is just a thing, but we have so much emotion and so much story built up around money. I was on a coaching call yesterday. It's a live group coaching call with Mindset Mentor University. And a lady was talking to me about how she was having trouble. Whenever she would make more money, she'd spend it. Whenever she'd make it, she would spend it. She never would actually, have more in her bank account for a long extended period of time. And I started asking her questions and I started, diving into it. And she's like, you know what? I think I might have this mindset of money is evil. And I was like, okay, where did that come from? We started talking about it. And I asked her a question, and it's a question that I asked myself as I started trying to build more wealth and make more money. And it's very simple. I said, what are your first memories around money? And she's like, I'm not really sure. And I was like, I will tell you with me, some of the first memories that I have around money. And I asked myself this question as I started to change my own money mindset. And one of the ones was that I remember, it's probably the first memory that I have around money, is I remember probably being 4 or 5 years old and I wanted GAC. And if you guys are old enough to remember GAC in the 90s, it was like Play-Doh, but kind of slimier. And I remember wanting GAC. And I remember my mom saying, we don't have money for that. We don't have enough money. And I did what a 4-year-old does sometimes. I threw a fit and I started crying on the couch in our 2-bedroom apartment. I remember specifically the moment being there and being under the covers with the blanket over my head and crying and throwing so much of a fit that my mom was just like, all right, fine, whatever, we'll go get it. And so we drove to Target and I was excited to be able to get the GAC, but I remember having this feeling of shame because I'm making my mom, in my head, my childhood mind, I'm making my mom spend money that we don't have for something that we don't really need. It's just a toy that I wanted. And I remember feeling shame around that. And so my first memory of money was shameful. I also remember, a ton of different memories as I started journaling through it and really going on this journey over the past 10, 15 years or so of really starting to see what I associate money to. And so first off, if you feel shame around something, if you make it very simple, if you have shame around something, is that good or is that bad? And for me, it was bad. Makes sense. If I have shame around it, it's bad. And so my first memory of money that I can actually remember and recall is a bad memory around money. Another memory I remember is my mom around tax season being really stressed out because she was a realtor and she had to do her taxes. I remember her sitting at the table with papers all over the place and just being stressed. So then I took myself out of it and I made it as simple as possible. And I said, if something makes my mom stressed, is that thing good or is that thing bad? And once again, that thing would be bad. And then there was another memory that I have where I was part of this thing called Civil Air Patrol in middle school. And I didn't even want to be part of Civil Air Patrol, but my friend Will was a part of it. And his mom asked if we would be a part of it. And so I had to be a part of Civil Air Patrol. And we had to go buy a uniform, right? And I remember we didn't have enough money to buy the uniform. So my grandfather, being the sweet man that he was, sent me a check for $100. And I remember feeling, once again, shame because my grandfather had sent me money to get something that I didn't even want. And my grandfather's retired and he was older. And so these are all my own internal stories, realize. This has nothing to do with reality. This is my own internal stories. So if I feel shame around my grandfather giving me money, is that good or is that bad? And so the memories that I can recall around childhood were bad, bad, bad. And so naturally I associated bad to money. And so then I started getting older and thinking about it. And so I struggled to make money. And then when I finally made money, I struggled to actually save it and hold on to it. Why? Because subconsciously, you don't want to make something that's bad. And when you make something that's bad, you don't want to keep something that's bad. And so I started uncovering this whole money mindset behind everything. And so the reason why I say this to you is because I think the first thing before we talk about building wealth is like, what is your actual, like you can want to consciously make money, but if you deeply subconsciously feel like money is bad and you don't know that consciously, but subconsciously you do, it's going to be really hard to make it. It's going to be really hard to keep it, right? And so that's the first thing I think is really important for you to take a step back after this episode and just dive in and say, what are my first memories around money? What are they? And are they good or are they bad? And you don't have to be poor for them to be bad. Like we were. I know people who have been raised by extremely wealthy people, and they never saw their father because he was out making money. And so they associate money with bad as well because they never got to see their father, or he wasn't around for the important things. And so it's really about you just starting to go through and say, like, what is my money mindset and how can I start to shift it? When you start realizing this, you start to realize that making money is a skill set to be learned. It's not something that you're like blessed with at birth. The same way that like you can go, okay, I want to get better at dribbling a basketball. Well, then I wasn't born with the skill set to be able to dribble a basketball. It's a skill set to be learned. Money is the exact same thing. Making money is not something that you do. It's a skill that you learn over time. And the first thing that I'll say before we dive into money, because money is very emotional for very people, is money does not fix problems. It will not fix any of your problems, okay? The only problems that money fixes are money problems. Sure, it allows you to become more free. It allows you to do what you want, when you want, with who you want. It allows you to buy stuff. But every single other problem that exists in your life will still be there no matter how rich and wealthy you become. Your relationship issues will still be there. Your self-worth issues will still be there. The way that you talk to yourself, positive or the negative self-talk will still be there. Nothing will change but the digits in your bank account. And that means you can do something or you can buy something. Every other problem is still there. And, for a lot of people, a lot of people think, well, when I make money, then this will be solved. And when I make money, this will be solved. Nothing ends up being solved. The only problems that money solves is money problems, okay? And the thing that you have to realize about money is that money is a game. Whether or not you want to learn the rules or not, you are in the game. Until the day you die, you are in the game of money. We have to make it, we have to buy it, we have to keep ourselves alive, we have to buy food, we have to buy water, we have to pay rent, mortgage, all of those things. You're in the game. If you want to stay ignorant of the game and not play it and not learn how to play it, that's completely your decision. But if you're going to be in the game, you might as well learn some of the rules, right? So instead of spending time on Netflix or scrolling on Instagram, why don't you actually start to learn more about money, right? Don't sit back and say, "Oh, I don't understand. I don't understand how it works." Well, that's obvious. That's why you haven't done it yet, right? So what do you need to learn is the better thing to ask yourself. What do I need to learn? And what you need to do is you need to start learning how to make more money first. Then you need to learn how to save it, and then you need to learn how to invest it. And after years, and I'm not saying this is like, most people are like, oh, I want to do it in 3 months. No, I'm talking years and years and years and years. You can eventually remove yourself from having to work to make money. You can continue to work if you want to, but now you can just do it for fun. So like for me, I've been working really hard. I dropped out of college so that I could work. I'm 38 now, and I've been working really hard since I was 19. So for 19 years, I've been working really hard and building businesses and all of that. And my wealth manager and we had a conversation. I was like, listen, I want to be retired in 5 years. And when I say retired in 5 years, it doesn't mean that I do nothing. I don't ever see myself doing nothing. Like, I love what I do. So if you love the podcast, don't worry. It's not going to be ending in 5 years. But I want to get to the point where I'd never have to work another day, and I could keep my life exactly the way that it currently is. And I honestly don't say this to brag at all, not even a little bit, because I was in the position years ago of being fucking broke and overdrafting over and over and over and over and over again back in 2010, just fully overdrafting my account over and over again. And I was like, I need to figure this out, because I don't want to have to be the person who does. I don't want to struggle the rest of my life. And so I don't say it to brag. I say it because it's something that anyone can learn. I had a very fucked up money mindset for a long time, for most of my life. And now I'm just on this path trying to remove myself from the game if I would like to, right? If I would like, and I probably won't, because this is fun and I like doing this and I enjoy what I do, but I want to be able to and not feel like I have to work. And so I think everybody can get to that. You listening can get to that. It's just, what do you need to learn and start making a plan to do it? Okay. The next thing that I'll say around money that I feel a lot of people get really hung up around is it is possible to ethically make money. It is possible to ethically make money. So many people have been raised by parents that say to them or think that in order to make money, somebody else has to be screwed. Somebody else has to be screwed over in order to you become wealthy. And so a lot of people just go, well, I don't want to screw anybody over, so I'm not going to do it, right? A lot of people are raised by people whose parents talk trash about people who have money, who are a little bit more wealthy, who do well, because the parents might be jealous and they might just say that to make themselves feel better. I don't know what it might be, but so many people are raised by parents who have demonized the act of making money, when the act of making money is just an act. And they say, like, even on the coaching call yesterday, the lady said that she believed that money was evil. And I was like, money is not evil, because money is just a piece of paper. You can't look, like, if you went to your printer right now and you printed out a piece of paper and you took it, you can't be like, that white sheet of paper is evil. No. What some people do to make money can be evil, but that doesn't make money evil in itself. And so what I think is evil is not money. I think that greed is evil. And so those are two completely different conversations. So the thing about it too is that if you make more money, it gives you more ways to help other people. So it actually is not evil to make money, because it allows you to be able to help other people. Right. And some of the most giving people, like some of the wealthiest people I know, are also the most giving. I have a friend, I've talked about him on the podcast many times before, but his goal was to be, by the time he died, to be worth $100 million. And he hit that by the age of 40 through real estate. He hit it by 40, and then he decided, I need a new goal. And his new goal was, I'm going to donate $100 million in my lifetime before he dies. Right. So he's going to, by his hard work, he is able to donate $100 million. Was that evil? I don't think that's evil at all. And so really what it comes down to is testing the validity of our thoughts and our paradigms and our viewpoints and our beliefs around money. Right. So that's the mindset side of it. Let's start to talk a little bit more about the strategy side of it. And I'm not going to tell you guys, I mean, there's a million ways to make $1 million. But the first thing that you have to do is you have to learn to make money, and do not stop learning. Just learn to make money, whatever it is, and be learning all of the time in every market that you possibly can, from every person that you possibly can. Some of the wealthiest people that I know are just the most curious people. Like, they're the most curious learners. And so I was at an event a couple years ago, and there was a guy who had recently sold his business for $1 billion in cash. And him and his wife were the only owners of that business. So he exited the business for $1 billion in cash. What was crazy about it, though, is that at this event, he was at, and I'm not even being, facetious in any sort of way. I'm being 100% direct in telling you and real in telling you, he was at this event with 100 successful people, front and center with his notebook, taking the most notes and asking the most questions of anybody else in the room. He's just a curious guy. Now, he sold his company a few months before then for $1 billion in cash. He could have just sat in the back and been like, I'm hot shit. I'm so cool. I'm good at this. But he was just so curious. He was such a learner. He wanted to learn more and get better. Right. And so it's about learning as much as you possibly can and finding something that you actually enjoy doing. Because when you enjoy doing something, working hard doesn't feel like hard work. It feels like play. And so you are paid in the marketplace of the world. You're paid what you're worth. And if you are not paid what you want to be paid, you just need to make yourself more valuable. And so what do you need to learn in order to make yourself more valuable? What is it that makes you more valuable? And here's what's important. I would recommend that you stop following money, that you stop going and trying to just follow money to have money. What I would recommend is that you follow your passion, or you follow something that you're curious about. Like, follow your passion, follow your curiosity. Like, even if I didn't have a podcast, even if I didn't do any of this stuff, I would still be learning about myself and learning about other people, just because I'm so interested in people. Like, I'm so interested in meeting somebody, and when they sit down, just thinking in my head, not saying it out loud to them, but thinking in my head, how did you become how you are? Like, I want to know what the relationship with their mom is like, what the relationship with their dad is like, what it was like growing up. Because if I can start to piece those together, I can go, yeah, it makes sense why you are the person that you are, right? So I think what's really important is to follow your passion or your curiosity. Yours might not be the same as mine, but what is yours? Because life is a marathon, right? This whole game that we're in of, life, but also just the game of money is a marathon. And it's a lot easier to work harder when you're doing something that you enjoy and something that is intriguing for you. So, like, ask yourself this question and journal on it. What would be fun for you, but feel like work for others? What would be fun for you, but feel like work for others? Like, for me, coaching people, like I said, nothing is more interesting in the world to me. And I was at a restaurant with my wife this weekend, and the server was like, so you guys come in here all the time? Like, what do you guys do? And we started telling him and talking to him about it. And he's like, man, I could never do that. It seems exhausting, right? He's like, talking with people and coaching people and hearing all their shit, that sounds exhausting. And if to me, it's fun. And everyone is different. So, like, what would be fun to you, but feel like work for other people? And then you find it and you work at becoming better at that thing. Over time, if you just continue to keep learning, continue to keep working, you will distance yourself from other people. And years later, you will become one of the best in the world if you just keep going down that road. Because most people, this is the key to it, most people stop. Most people give up. So if you just keep on going down the road, you're just going to be better than everybody else. So then as you start to find something that you're interested in, as you put years and invest yourself into learning and becoming a little bit more curious on it, try to become one of the best in the world at what you do. Don't be a jack of all trades with all the knowledge spread out all over the place. You can be a mile wide and an inch deep in all of your knowledge, or you can be an inch wide and a mile deep. The inch wide and a mile deep, those are the highest paid people in the world. And so it's about the depth of your knowledge, the depth and how deep you can go, not the distance of all of the things that you know. And most importantly, what's important about this is to do what feels right to you. No one can compete with you on being you. And that's why it's insane when people's parents try to tell them what they should do, because your parents have no idea what feels right to you. This is your job. This is your thing that you're going to be doing. And so you've got to get really curious. And that's the best way of making money, is to find something that you love to do, you want to invest your time in, you want to develop yourself, and you become worth more money in the marketplace. And so really what it's about is, first off, is discovering that for you. So that's more on the side of how to make money. That's step number one. Learn how to make money. Then step number two is, once you start making money, you have to learn how to save money. This is the biggest mistake that I see people when they start making money. They change their standard of living almost immediately. They get a big check, they go buy a Rolex. They get a big check, they go to the Gucci store, right? As you start making more money, do not change your standard of living. Make a budget, figure out what money goes in every single month, what money goes out every single month, how much surplus is required, how much are your bills and how much are your living expenses, and then whatever surplus you might have after that. You can give yourself whatever it is that you want to go have fun, to eat out, to buy some cool stuff, but then have a certain amount, like, hey, we stop at this amount. Everything over that is saved. Saving is also a skill set. Do you need it or do you want it? There's not a wrong answer. If you want something, you can still buy it if you want. Just you have to decide, like, what's your threshold of, this is how much with bills and how much with fun is how much I'm going to spend every single month. And everything over that, no matter what, I won't break my rules. Everything over that is going to go into a bank account, and I'm going to save it, and I'm not going to be able to spend it. right? And it requires work. It requires knowledge. It requires you getting better at it because it is a game and it is something that you need to learn. But really what it is how can you learn it? How can you get better at it? And so that's the second thing, is learning how to save it. And then the third thing, so you learn how to make it, you learn how to save it. And then the third thing, and these are all just different skill sets that you build over time, is you learn how to invest your money. And you have your money make you money. This takes knowledge. It's something that must be learned. And this is how you start to remove yourself from being required to work. True wealth is built from assets that make you money while you sleep. And so you can invest your money into markets like the stock market and different markets if you want to. And that makes you money over time. You can invest your money into companies and that can make you money over time, all without showing up. Now, is there risk? Absolutely. No matter what, investing involves risk. Are there riskier things? Yes. Are there less risky things? Yes. And so what you do is as you start making money, as you start saving money, is you start getting really knowledgeable about whatever interests you the most of how you want to have your money make you money. Once again, true wealth is built from assets that make you money while you sleep. And this is something that's done, this is the key, everybody, over decades, not months. Years and years and years and years down the road is when you start to see the biggest returns happening. And so this isn't something where you're like, I'm going to figure out how to get really good. And if you want to, you could do this. I have no trouble. I want to get really good at crypto. You can. But the people who are looking for like home runs immediately are usually the people that strike out 3 months down the road and lose all of their money. That's just what I've seen from a lot of different people. And so if you realize, like we were taught as children, be the tortoise and not the hare, right? Be the tortoise. Slow and steady wins the race. So it's something that's done over decades and not months. And years and years and years down the road is when you're going to start to see those big returns. And then the last tip I'll give you, so that's the step 1, step 2, step 3. But the last tip that I'll give you that I have seen people really mess up with and then seen other people succeed with is to seek wealth, not status. What I mean by that is wealth is when you're able to make money, to save money, and to invest your money so that your money is making you money without you having to show up, right? If that doesn't make sense to you as far as how to get there, that's something that you need to just try to learn and try to get better at. Don't seek status. You can buy things if you want to, but don't let that be your driving force because that's a game, I promise you, that cannot be won. To keep up with the Joneses, to try to impress people, to buy things to put on Instagram. My wealth manager, I had a conversation with him and he's like, I know people that make $5 million a year and they save none of it. So they have to keep making that money in order to keep up with the lifestyle that they have. Impressing people, keeping up with the Joneses, buying things to impress other people, all of that is just a losing game. It will only keep you in the money game longer. And so ultimately, what you want to start thinking to yourself is, how can I free myself from the game? Where I can keep playing if I want to, and I probably will because I need something to do with my time, and it's also fun to me because I've found something that I'm curious about and I'm passionate about. But ultimately, what I'm trying to do is be able to remove myself from the game if I decide I want to. So ultimately, those are the 3 steps to developing wealth. And hopefully this episode allowed you to see things a little bit different as far as your perspective around money, but also how you can do it. And once again, this isn't something that you do in months. This is something that you do in decades. Slow and steady wins the race. But if you just decide that you want to do this, you will get better, you will improve, and you will be able to remove yourself from the game of money. So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please do me a huge favor. Share it on your Instagram stories. Tag me in it, Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. The only way this podcast grows is from you guys actually sharing it out there however you can. And so it really means a lot to me when you share the podcast for more people to find it. And that's how we learn and grow and continue to help the world improve, hopefully. So if you would do that, I would greatly appreciate it. And with that, I'm going to leave you the same way I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission to make somebody else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Welcome to today's video. Do you want to be a better communicator? If so, I'm going to give you 4 tips to become a better communicator across all areas of your life. Let's dive in. There's one thing that you cannot run from as a human, and that is that if you want to be in this world, you're going to have to communicate with other people. And you could either be good at communicating with other people or you could be terrible at communicating with other people. And I want you to understand that communication is not something that you're necessarily just born with. Communication and becoming good at it or better at it is a skill set. And so it is a skill set, which means that if your skills are not good right now, your skills can always become better. And so for me, I'll tell you my story. It's pretty wild. Like, I would have never thought I was somebody who would put out a podcast when I was a kid that would speak to hundreds of thousands and millions of people throughout the course of a year. When I was younger, I was a super shy kid. I'm still very introverted, and I can push myself to be extroverted at times, and I wasn't a very outgoing kid. I didn't have a girlfriend until I was in 8th grade. And then I realized in 8th grade, when I didn't have a girlfriend, I was like, if I want a girlfriend one day, I probably need to stop being so shy. And so I kind of hated speaking, but I forced myself to start speaking. And then when I got into my first sales position, they just pushed you to get on stage. We had team meetings twice a week. And so eventually, once you're there for a couple months, they're like, hey, you're going to speak at a team meeting. And I had to speak starting weekly. And then I started speaking, every couple days. And then I had to get to a point where I was basically speaking for 6 hours a day for 5 years straight. I was doing interviews. I was talking with people, and there were group interviews that I was running. And so I started studying communication. I started reading books. I started watching other people and seeing how they're communicating, and watching somebody who's a great professional speaker and what are they doing that I'm not doing. And so what I'm going to go over with you guys is just what I see as the 4 pillars of really great communication. And if you start using these in your daily interactions, you're going to start noticing that you're a better communicator, and people will start changing the way that they speak to you, and you'll get more meaningful conversations out of it. And so let's dive in. The first one is to become a better speaker, shut up. So what does that mean? In order to have a better conversation with someone, get better at listening to the other person. Listen more than you speak. You're given 2 ears and 1 mouth because you should listen twice as much as you speak. If you've ever been in a conversation with someone and they talk almost the entire time, and then they get done and they're like, oh, that was such a great conversation. You're like, I barely said anything. People want to speak and they want to be heard. And so this is a phrase that one of my very first teachers used to teach me when I was younger. And he would say, give up being interesting for being interested. Be more interested in other people. Be more curious. Ask more questions. And when you're using active listening to somebody else, it requires your full engagement. And so what you want to try to do is you want to try to silence your internal dialogue and keep your focus on the person that you're talking to, so that you don't have to figure out, oh, well, what am I going to say next? Oh, well, I want to tell them this story. What's the question I'm going to ask next? So just try to be a little bit quiet and try to put more presence into just listening to the person. Next thing you want to do is you want to be able to acknowledge what they're saying and validate what they're saying. How do you do this? You nod your head. You make eye contact. You provide small verbal affirmations like, oh, yeah, I understand. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I see. And then what you want to do is you ask open-ended questions. So to be able to encourage somebody else to keep speaking, ask them questions that are open-ended, which means not yes or no questions, but it's questions like, well, how did that make you feel? Well, what do you think the next step should be? Those questions allow them to go a little bit deeper. Every once in a while, it's really important to also reflect and summarize so that people can tell that you're listening as well. And so it shows that you're engaged. And so it's like, oh man, that's crazy. So she said X, Y, Z to you? And then you actually are reflecting back what they said. Oh yeah, she said this. And then they go a little bit deeper. Another thing that's really important, I gave this tip to my sales team earlier this week, or actually it was last week. And they're like, it's crazy how much more people will speak when you do this. And my very first one-on-one coach used to tell me this. He would say, give a couple seconds after someone stops speaking before you respond. And so what he would say is go, okay, someone stopped speaking. And in your head you go, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. And if you get to 3, then you can respond. If you don't get to 3, then let them keep going. Lots of times what people will do is they will stop speaking and then they'll start speaking again in those 3 seconds. And they will then go deeper into their story. And the deeper that they go into their story, their thoughts about themselves, their thoughts about the world, the more that they feel heard. They usually don't give you everything the first time. And so if you're in sales, do this as well. Someone gives you an answer, and then you can speak, right? It's just a little bit extra time. And we used to call them power pauses, is what we called them. And so remember this. This is what's really important about the whole thing. People just want to feel seen and heard. If you can make somebody feel seen and heard, that requires no verbal from you. You could just sit there and listen and let them go. And maybe every once in a while, you ask them a couple of questions to help them go longer. People will feel like, man, that was such a great conversation. I really like him. I really like her. I feel like they're a really great listener. So that's the first thing, is make sure you get better at your active listening skills. The second thing, this is something that I really had to work on for a long time when I was younger, is nonverbal communication. And so there was a study that was done back in the 1960s, and there's a guy named Dr. Albert Mehrabian. And he said that when you communicate, out of 100% of communication, 7% of that communication is words, 38% is tonality, and 55% is your body language. Body language is your head nods, your shoulders are squared up with the person, your facial expressions. And just as a vast generalization, women tend to be better at nonverbal communication than men. And this is something I learned when I was way younger. My very first mentor was really, really good at developing managers, from sales reps to managers that were women. He had the most people in the entire country develop from sales reps into managers that were female. And so I asked him, I was like, hey, how do I get better at like communicating? How do I get better at managing? Because to manage men and manage women are usually a little bit different of a skill set. And he's like, read the book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And he's like, and also what I would say is don't do this in a creepy way, but when you go out in public, just watch women communicate with each other, watch how men communicate with each other. And so there was a study that was done years ago. And what they found is they went into a school of like 5 and 6 year olds, and they had a giant wall that was just a one-way mirror, two-sided mirror actually. And so they could watch these children. And what they found is that boys often engage in activities that require them to be side by side. So like playing a video game, participating in sports, and their conversations usually occur being side to side, like next to each other, shoulder to shoulder. And this might give the impression of them communicating in the same direction and like, oh, we're just going to, we're going to talk in the exact same direction. So that's what they found, is that little boys tend to be shoulder to shoulder. And so when they were watching these children that were inside of the classroom, little boys would sit at their chairs and they would both face the front of the classroom, but they would turn their heads to each other. Hey, real quick, I want to introduce you to something called Mindset Mentor Plus. If you love this podcast, you will absolutely love what I'm about to talk about. I designed Mindset Mentor Plus to help you actively integrate every one of these episodes into your life. And here's how it works. With every episode of this podcast that comes out, Mindset Mentor Plus subscribers get more. You're going to get multiple page, detailed, printable worksheets, effectively a mini masterclass that's way more in depth than just this podcast. They also come with journaling questions, challenges, assignments, and so much more, so that you're not just listening to these podcasts passively, but you're actively integrating them into your life. That way you improve much faster. I also do monthly Q&A sessions in there and much, much more. If you want to learn more about it, go to mindsetmentor.com or click the link that's down in the description. In my opinion, what they think as well is they think this goes back to hunting. So it's just kind of built into our system over hundreds of thousands of years. And there is a reason why they're not looking at each other. It's because they don't want to miss an animal or they don't want to be killed. And so a lot of times, like I've been hunting many times, and I'm not square face to face with my friend. We're usually either shoulder to shoulder where we're walking through somewhere, or we're back to back so that we can see 360 degrees. And we'll have a full conversation never looking at each other, right? What they found though is with little girls is that on the other hand, like boys will be shoulder to shoulder looking at the front of the classroom. Little girls, even at like 4, 5, 6 years old, tend to form small, intimate groups where they're face to face. And they actually look at each other. They square up their shoulders. This is why women tend to be better with body language than men. Obviously that's a vast generalization, but it tends to be that way. And they're better at showing that they're listening is because they're usually facing each other face to face. And so they found these little girls would literally turn their chairs and be face to face instead of the little boys that were facing towards the front of the room. And so like, if you've ever been in a situation where guys, you're sitting there and your girlfriend or your wife is like telling you a story and she's like, you're not even listening to me. And you're like, what are you talking about? I heard everything that she said. He might have heard it, but he probably didn't get the visual cues, the head nods, the uh-huhs, the yes, oh, okay, the reflecting back of the conversation. And so you got to just be conscious of your body language if you want to be a really good communicator. Maintain an open posture, which means like don't cross your arms, don't cross your legs, because that can appear defensive. And that's usually subconsciously somebody picks up on, oh, his arms are closed. Like they're not consciously thinking, oh, his arms are closed, he's closed off, but it just feels like they're closed off. When you're listening to somebody, every once in a while, lean slightly forward to convey that you're interested and you're engaging with them. Maintain eye contact with them. It shows that you're listening, that you're attentive. And then watch for nonverbal cues in others. Recognize when someone is becoming disinterested, which means that they're looking at their watch, or they're looking away, or they're looking towards a door, or they're feeling uncomfortable in the situation, which is like shifting their weight. When I'm coaching people and I'm one-on-one, I'm always watching their body language, because their body is usually showing me cues that they're not telling me. And so I'm like, hold on, you just took like a really deep breath right there. What happened? Oh, well, I was thinking about this. And then you go a little bit deeper. And so you want to be attuned to other people's nonverbal signals and also pay attention to your nonverbals as well. Okay, next one, number 3, is your tonality. You want to get good at regulating your pitch and your tone. And so if you have a calm and steady tone, it can de-escalate tensions if you're in the middle of a fight, whatever it might be. Fun conversations can be varied tonalities, be louder. So 38% of communication is your tonality. And so I'm going to give you an example of what I mean by this. So if we take the phrase, so you might say 38% is tonality. Yeah, it is. So if you go, I didn't say she stole my money. We're going to take that phrase, that sentence, I didn't say she stole my money. And I'm going to emphasize different words to show you how just the exact same sentence, emphasize on each word differently, will show how the sentence changes. So if you say, I didn't say she stole my money, that shows, someone else said it. I didn't say it. If you say, I didn't say she stole my money, I'm denying the claim or the accusation that I said she stole my money. I didn't say she stole my money. I didn't say she stole my money. I might have hinted or I might have written it down, but I didn't verbally communicate it, is what I'm saying. I didn't say she stole my money. I'm not accusing her specifically, but somebody else. I didn't say she stole my money. Maybe she borrowed it, maybe she found it, whatever it might be, but I didn't say she stole the money. I didn't say she stole my money. Means I didn't say she stole money. Could have been something else that she stole. It could have been somebody else's money that she stole. And then you could say, I didn't say she stole my money. She might have taken something else from me, but it wasn't my money. It's the exact same sentence, but when you change the tonality of it, the sentence changes completely. And so I always tell, especially when I'm talking with my sales reps, I say you can say pretty much anything that you want to. You just have to make sure you're saying the correct way. And so if you're sitting down with somebody and you could say something like, when are you going to change your life? And it's like, that feels kind of aggressive. But if you say, when are you going to change your life? It feels like, oh, it's not as aggressive right there, right? And it's just the tonality that you use with people. So if you want to start mastering your communication, as you're saying the words are only 7% of what you're saying. The other 38% of it is just the tonality, and the other 55% is your body language, which we spoke about just a minute ago. So the sentences change as your tonality changes, as your word emphasis changes as well. And so that's the third one. And then the fourth one is get better at being clear and concise. Less is more. I don't know if you know anybody like this. One of my best friends, he will just talk. And we have this joke where I'm like, dude, can you just land the plane? And so, because he'll just talk, and for those of you guys that are watching on YouTube, I'll literally take my hand as if it's a plane, and I act like I'm landing a plane because he just knows he can go off on tangents. And sometimes he talks, and a lot of the people around him are like lost. Like, where are we going in this? And so you have to understand when you're like really one of those people who beats around the bush, there's a lot of, if you look at anybody that you really think is a really great communicator, they're clear and they're concise, and they usually don't use big words. Big words and complex thoughts actually make you seem less intelligent to the listener. There was a study that was done that actually found that people use big words and complex words, people actually see them as less intelligent, which is wild because you think, oh, they're using such big words, they must be so smart. But if people can't understand what you're saying, they equate it automatically to this person isn't that smart because I don't understand them. You know, Einstein said, if you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it well enough. I remember a conversation I was having with another one of my friends who uses big words and complex thoughts. And I was like, man, you're giving this speech to people and you're kind of like speaking over them. I was just giving him a tip. We were just talking back and forth. And he's like, well, I can't help it, man. This is why I speak. And I was like, okay, I'm interested. Are you speaking from the stage so that the audience hears how smart you are, or so that the audience can understand you? And he was like, oh shit, I've never thought of it that way. I was like, yeah, that's what you kind of want to start to think about that. And kind of get an idea. What if you spoke with more easy words? People always talk about with the podcast that I don't speak over people, and then I try to say things very clear and concise and simply. Like, that is my thing that I'm trying to get better at all of the time. And I try not to speak over a 7th grade reading level, because the average person in America doesn't have above an 8th grade reading level. So I want to speak so where most people can understand. There was a study that was done, and I love the title of it. A guy named Daniel Oppenheimer, and the study was called Consequences of Erudite Vernacular Utilize Introspective of Necessity. Problems with Using Long Words Needlessly. Title is supposed to obviously be very funny because he's making jokes about this. But in his research, Oppenheimer found that when content is made more complex and it's unnecessary, readers or listeners rate the author or the speaker as less intelligent. And so on the opposite side of that, when content is very clear, it's very straightforward, people rated that communicator as much more intelligent than the other one. So don't use big words. I mean, you can use big words if you want, but if you understand that 50% of the people are not going to understand what that word means, try to convey your message as simply as you possibly can. Being clear and concise helps the listeners understand, which is what you're trying to do when you communicate with people, is have them understand, not be like, hey, look how fucking smart I am. And so I was like, hey, can't we just, be a little bit more clear, a little bit more concise, land the plane, let everybody know, hey, we're all talking on the same level. I'm not trying to speak over you. I'm not trying to show you how smart I am. I want as many people as possible to understand what I'm saying. So why don't we just be a little bit clear, a little bit concise as well? And so those are the 4 tips, the 4 steps, the 4 strategies to help you be a better communicator. So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please share it on your Instagram stories. Tag me in it, Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. The only way this podcast grows is from you guys sharing it organically and through grassroots. And we want to keep impacting more people over here. And so if you would share it, I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. And we'd be able to impact more people's lives. So if you do that, I would thank you for that. And with that, I'm going to leave you the same way I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission to make somebody else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Today, we're going to talk about how to have better mental health. We're going to talk about how to step away from toxic people and toxic situations. And as we do that, I just want to give you one overarching theme for today's episode. I want you to give yourself permission to step away from anyone or anything that is not good for your mental health. Let me say that again. I want you to give yourself permission to step away from anyone or anything that is not good for your mental health. Over the past few years, mental health has been a huge topic, and I think that it should be. I think that it's a topic that's finally starting to come to light the way that it should, and there's a lot of things that had to happen in the world in order for that to happen. But I do think that we're starting to go in a positive direction. But mental health has been a really big focus. People are starting to talk about it a whole lot more. And people are starting to go to therapy a whole lot more. I feel like there's a lot of people that I know now that are actually talking about the therapists that they go to and what they're learning and how they're growing. And I think that's amazing. More people are listening to this podcast. That's awesome. Hopefully I'm providing value and helping people with their mental health. But I do want you to understand there may not be anything in your life that is more important than your mental health. Now, some of you are out there and your parents are saying, hold on, but I have kids. I have kids. They're more important than me. I would jump in front of a bullet for them. So my mental health has got to come second to my children. And I'm like, okay, you can think that if you want, but your mental health, the reason why I say that I think, in my opinion, that it is more important than anything else in your life, it is the most important thing in your life, is because your mental health literally affects everything. And if your relationship with your children is like raising the best children, your relationship with your children is the most important thing in your life, that means that your mental health also affects your relationships. Your bad mental health or your good mental health affects your relationships with your children, with your spouse, with your boyfriend, girlfriend, with your parents, with everybody that you know. Also, your mental health is definitely going to affect your work. your money that you're going to make. It's going to help or hurt and affect your physical health. And when I say physical health, I don't mean that just having great mental health is going to affect your fitness and having a six pack, but I mean the actual functions of your body, and how there's facts, studies of psychologists that have done this through years of how people who have mental health problems, and maybe they have more depression or maybe they have more anxiety, actually, because their body is in fight or flight more often, it shuts down a lot of the organ movement and functions that their body should be doing. So their body is actually being hurt because of that. And so when we neglect our mental health for too long, it can lead to a ton of negative consequences. It can lead to anxiety and depression and stress and burnout, all of those things. And one of the most significant contributors to poor health is just exposure to negative people or negative situations. Like if we could just remove ourselves from a lot of those people, being in contact with those people or being in contact in those situations, a lot of times our mental health is going to improve. And sometimes we need to give ourselves permission to step away from anyone or anything that's not good for our mental health. Now, some of you guys are like, but hold on, my job, I have people that I work with in my job that are terrible for my mental health. I cannot leave them. Okay. Is there a way for you to figure out a way to get around that? Is it possible for you to switch to a different department or to spend less time with those people or to maybe in the next 6 to 12 months, switch to a different company, whatever it might be? There's always a solution to every single problem. If the problem is the people that you have in your life are toxic, there's a problem to that. There's a problem there, and there's a solution to that problem. I don't know what it is, but you can find it at some point in time. You might not find it today, but if you start searching for the solution, you will eventually find that solution. Some of you are saying to yourself, but hold on, I can't remove myself from relationships that I have. A lot of people send me messages on Instagram. I read all of my messages on Instagram. I can't get back to all of them because there's literally hundreds of them. But by seeing and sometimes talking with people on Instagram, I'm able to start to create and see these episodes of what's going on in people's lives. And so for those of you guys that send me a message on Instagram, I love you. Thank you. Continue to do so. And then the rest of you, send me some messages. Let's see if we can hopefully chat, if I can help you in some way. I try to message as many people back as I can. But a lot of times what I hear from people who do message me on Instagram is that their family is extremely toxic, or someone in their family is very toxic, and it's not very easy to remove themselves from that. And I'm not saying that you have to completely remove yourself, but can you spend less time in certain places with certain people? And if I'm being honest with you, it's not always easy to recognize when someone or something is negatively impacting your mental health. But as you start to think about this, as I'm talking about this, I'm sure many of you are starting to think about certain people, and it's like light bulbs going off of like, yeah, that's negative. Oh, that's toxic. Oh, that's toxic as well. And it's hard to find, but if that is a problem, there is a solution to every problem. If you don't think there's a solution to the problem, then you've created another problem. And that problem is that you're stuck forever, because we can feel like we're stuck forever. You might not be able to make a change immediately, but there's always possibility for change somewhere down the road. So we may get so caught up in a situation, we may get caught up in a circumstance, we may get caught up in a relationship. And it's so normal at this point, or it's been happening for so long, we don't even really notice how it's affecting us. And, we sit there and we're like, it's just always been this way. My relationship has always been this way. My family has always been this way. This circumstance has always been this way. It's always been this way for me. And when it's always been this way, we think it will always be that way. But we can always move and shift and change things. And we can feel something is wrong. And a lot of times what we feel is, because it's been this way for so long, we feel powerless that we can't do anything about it. And I'm here to tell you that there is always something can be done about it. But you have to find it, and you have to take action on whatever it is that you find as the solution. But here is a really important thing for you to realize. Acting like it's not there is not going to change it. Acting like your relationship with your mom, for instance, is not toxic is not going to change it. And it's only going to make it worse. It might feel better in the moment because you're just avoiding and avoiding and avoiding, but it's only going to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Brushing stuff under the rug will eventually make the rug so big that you trip over it. And acting like it's not there does not change it. And if you're resisting that it's there and you're trying to turn a blind eye to it, what you resist persists. It will always be there. And it will 100%, I can guarantee you, get worse over time. Whether that's your mental health, your relationships, a situation, all of those things will always get better. All of the things will always get worse over time if we avoid the tough conversation or the tough decision, whatever it might be. Because when we're raised, people older than us make decisions for us. And, when we're younger, we have our parents making decisions for us. We have teachers that make decisions for us. We have aunts and uncles and grandparents that make decisions for us. And what I find is with a lot of people that are adults, they don't really know how to make real decisions for themselves, because when they were young, I could talk with someone who's 35 years old, 45 years old. They don't know how to make a real important decision for themselves because they haven't broken out from the fact of they've always been told what to do. And they've always been enabled to listen to someone else instead of listening to themselves. But you have to realize that you have a responsibility to yourself to do what's best for you. A lot of times, stepping away from people or circumstances that are toxic to you is the greatest act of self-love that you could have. You might feel guilty and you might feel selfish for prioritizing yourself. Hey, hell, you may have never prioritized yourself before in your entire life, but it is something that has to be done. And in the moment, it might feel selfish. It might feel wrong. It might feel like you are just completely prioritizing yourself and you feel guilty and selfish for it. But we cannot control other people and we cannot control all situations. The only thing that we can control is ourselves. So if you're out there and you have a situation in your life, first off, I don't want you to think that just because of the fact that other people can be toxic and other situations can be toxic, I don't want you to think that we don't need to look into ourselves and figure out how we need to change. I 100% believe in that, and not just blaming other people or other circumstances. But this episode is not about that. Majority of episodes I create is about changing yourself. Today's episode is about changing your external circumstances. If someone or something is causing you a whole lot of stress and anxiety, the best thing that you can do is remove yourself from the situation, whatever that looks like. So let me give you a couple tips on how I could possibly help you go through this if this is something that you're going through. If you're thinking about a relationship, if you're thinking about a circumstance, if you're thinking about a situation, if you're thinking about a job that you have, whatever it might be, let me give you a couple tips that can hopefully help you out. I've got 4 tips for you. Number 1 is, as you start to identify certain toxic people or certain toxic situations, you have to learn to set boundaries. You have to decide what you're willing to tolerate and what you will no longer tolerate. This is one of the things that I see, especially with people pleasers. There's a lot of people pleasers out there, is that because of the fact that we're such people pleasers, we tolerate everything. This is what I'm willing to do. I'll do whatever will make everybody else happy instead of myself. So what are you willing to tolerate and what are you no longer willing to tolerate? Okay? It's important to literally set boundaries around what we're going to tolerate and what we're not going to tolerate. And this might be certain people, it might be certain places, it might be certain, beliefs that you have, it might be certain thought process that you have. You've got to learn to set boundaries with yourself, with other people, and with certain circumstances. Next tip, you have to prioritize your self-care, right? And when I say self-care, I don't mean like going and getting a massage or getting your nails done and getting your hair done. Like, sure, that is self-care, and I think that people should do that and they should take care of themselves. But I also mean like self-care as far as like exercise. I'm really big on exercise. I talk about exercise almost every damn episode, and it's not because I think I love exercise. It's because exercise has been proven to be one of the biggest levers that you can pull in your own mental health. And so I do think that moving your body in some sort of way every single day is one of the most important things you can ever do. What else do I mean by it besides exercise? I mean meditation. I mean spending time in nature. I mean disconnecting sometimes. Doing hobbies that you love, that bring you joy, that bring you fulfillment. Like, if I give you a really big tip, start treating yourself like someone that you're in charge of taking care of. It's so funny because we have other people that we take care of, but a lot of times we don't look at ourselves and go, I actually need to take care of myself. Like, I'm in charge of taking care of myself. So start treating yourself like somebody that you're in charge of taking care of. So that's the next thing, is practice self-care. Next one is try to surround yourself with as much positivity as possible. a lot of times when I put stuff about being positive online, there's always people who are like, well, don't ignore the negative goes away. I'm not saying ignore the negative at all, but what I tend to find is that when you come from something in a positive standpoint, it makes it much easier to overcome the negative things and to work through those negative things. So how can you surround yourself with as much positivity as possible? You could live in the middle of Montana by yourself and not another soul is in sight within 50 miles. But somehow you're listening to this podcast. So there's many ways to surround yourself with positivity, even if there's no positive people around you. There's podcasts. You're clearly listening to this podcast. There's movies. There's books. There's other people who bring out the best in you. There's people that are your best friends that live on the other side of the world that you just don't talk to enough, and they bring out the best in you. So how can you just decide to surround yourself with more positivity? That's the third one. And then the fourth one is just be aware of your triggers. Start noticing when you are triggered and where that might have come from. If you're triggered because somebody said something to you and you take a step back and you're going, okay, what am I feeling right now? Like I'm feeling really triggered. Why am I feeling triggered? Okay, I was just told XYZ from this person and I feel bad. Okay, why do I feel bad? Because I actually feel like that person was talking down to me. Okay, shit. Do they talk down to me often? Do they trigger me often? They do. Okay. Maybe I need to go back to step number one, which is set some boundaries and tell them what I'm willing to accept and what I'm not willing to accept. And if they're going to continue to speak to me that way, I'm going to remove myself from this relationship. And it's about becoming more self-aware, noticing our triggers and going, okay, how do I feel right now? I don't feel good. I don't feel good. Why don't I feel good? I don't feel good. Why don't I feel good? I don't feel good because of this thing that just happened. Okay. Is it possible that I was triggered by somebody else because I feel like they're talking down to me? In reality, they are talking down to me. Shit, they talk down to me all the time. Do I want to be talked down to anymore? And you start to notice your triggers. And a lot of times your triggers are your greatest teachers. Your triggers are your teachers. They teach you how you need to change, how you need to improve. And maybe that you're just overreacting to a situation, or maybe that situation is really toxic and you need to move yourself from that situation, that person. And so the important thing, and the thing I want to go back to is the thing I said to you at the very beginning of this. I want you to give yourself permission to step away from anyone or anything that is not good for your mental health, and for you to start taking care of yourself and prioritizing your mental health and take care of yourself as if you are in charge of taking care of yourself, as if you are someone you're in charge of taking care of, because you are. And the more that you prioritize your mental health, the more every single aspect of your life will improve. So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please share it on your Instagram stories and tag me in it, Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIALJR. And I'm going to leave you the same way I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission to make somebody else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day. And today we're going to be diving into something that sounds so simple, but honestly, it's what separates the life you talk about to the life that you actually live. And what we're going to be talking about is the mentality of do it now. And it's a mindset that moves you from dreaming about life to doing, from planning to progress to productivity. What it boils down to is just getting yourself to take action when you need to take action. When I was writing my book, Level Up, I asked myself, like, what do I do? When I look at the grand scheme of everything that I do, what exactly do I do? And a good portion of what I do in this podcast and coaching people is help you understand yourself psychologically and neurologically so that you can understand how you hold yourself back. And then when you understand how you hold yourself back, then you can start to actually take action, because you will not have the life that you want if you don't take action. Maybe there's life after this. Maybe there's not. Maybe we become worm food. Maybe we go to another place. I don't know, but I do know that this life that I'm living right now, I have. And I want to get everything that I possibly can out of it. And here's the truth that's going to sting a little bit. The word later is probably the most dangerous word in your vocabulary. It's the kind of word that it sounds innocent. It's like a soft pillow that you can land on, right? But later is where your dreams go to die. You don't lose all of your dreams at once. You lose them slowly, and it's one postponed decision at a time throughout your entire lifetime. Let's talk about this whole myth of later, because I've been a victim of this many, many times in my life. How many of you out there have said something like, oh, I'll start my business later, or I'll spend more time with my kids later, or I'll follow my dreams and start that business when life starts to slow down? But here's the thing that you need to understand. Time doesn't slow down. You slow down. You get older. You get slower. Later makes you feel safe because you can stay in your comfort zone right now. And it's like, yeah, okay, I'll do it later on down the road. But you know, and I know you don't do that later, right? So later just makes you feel safe because it keeps you in your comfort zone right now. It's a thief. It steals your momentum. It steals your energy. It steals your connection. It steals all of this time that you'll never get back. And it steals all of your dreams from you. The scariest part about all of it is you can build an entire life on laters. Some people listening right now are 40, 50 years old, and you've built an entire life on laters. And then you're looking around and you're like, well, this isn't the life that I wanted. And some people build an entire life on laters, and then they don't notice it until it's too late. So if you're listening to this podcast right now, it's not too late. And this whole thing is backed by psychology as well. There's something that's called temporal discounting theory. And so there's a study that's published in Cognitive Psychology that showed that humans tend to devalue future rewards in favor of immediate rewards. It's what's known as hyperbolic discounting. And so we overestimate the value of doing something right now, and we underestimate the cost of what's going to be coming later on down the road, which is important because that's the cost of inaction. And so when you look at the cost, the important part to understand is every single thing, everything that you do, every decision that you make has some sort of a cost. Most of the costs you don't see right now. You see it later on down the road. And so we can act like we're blind to it, but it's going to be coming eventually. There's a cost to doing something. There's a cost to effort and energy and risk and putting yourself out there and coming into view with like your biggest insecurities when you decide to put yourself out there and do something. There's a cost to doing something. It's hard. It really is hard to build the life that you want. But there's also a cost to not doing it. There's regret. There's missed opportunity. This slow decay of life that you have. And we usually measure the cost of action. And we say, well, yeah, I do want to do this thing, but like, what if I fail? Or what if it's not perfect? Or what if I'm not ready? Or what if people judge me? So we usually measure the cost of action right now, which makes us delay. But we rarely ask, like, what's the cost of me not doing it? Think about that. What's the cost of waiting another year? What happens if I never do this at all? What if I get to the end of my life and I'm filled with regret? Those questions should scare the out of you. And sometimes change doesn't happen until the pain of staying the same is more painful than the pain of change. The graveyard is the richest place in the world. It's full of people who pushed off their dreams with a bunch of laters. The cost of inaction is always higher later on down the road, way higher. There was a study that was done at Harvard, and it was in adult development. It's the longest running study in happiness ever. It was started in 1938, and it's still going right now. And what they found was that regret about missed relationships and unlived dreams was one of the most painful emotional experiences that people carried with themselves later on in life. It's not failure that people regret. It's inaction that people regret. And then they're on their deathbeds and they're like, damn, I could have brought out more potential. I could have had a more fulfilling life. I could have impacted myself, the world, my family more. And I said this many times in the podcast, life is either hard now and easy later, or easy now and hard later. Most people in this world choose easy now, but eventually the cost is going to make their life harder later. You can decide that you want to choose hard now, which will make your life easier later. There will be hard at some point in time in your life. Either you choose it now, when you are the youngest that you'll ever be, or the universe is going to smack you in the face with it somewhere down the road. Let me make it personal to you. When you look at it, not telling your spouse how you really feel, what's the cost of it? Costs you connection, costs you intimacy, costs you maybe your relationship completely if it goes too long down the road. Starting a side hustle, there's some cost with it. Yeah, but what's the cost of not starting it? Well, costs you potential freedom, being stuck working a job that doesn't fulfill you for the rest of your life, the place where you're going to spend the majority of your waking hours, not prioritizing your health, cost you years off of the end of your life. And so here's the deal. You can pay now in discipline, or you can pay later in regret. Either way, you're writing a check. Would you rather pay in discipline or regret? It's like Jim Rohn says. He says, discipline weighs ounces, but regret weighs tons. And it all comes down to this idea of instant gratification versus delayed gratification. You know, if we get psychological for a second, instant gratification, which we usually choose now, which is sleeping in, which is scrolling instead of taking action and building the business that you want to do, which is eating a Pop-Tart now versus something that's healthy for you. Instant gratification feels good now, but it weakens you long-term. And so, you know, when you look at it, yeah, when you have that little bit of scrolling instead of taking action, you get a hit of dopamine. When you eat that Pop-Tart, you get a little hit of dopamine. And so you get this dopamine in this instant gratification. Delayed gratification feels hard right now, but it strengthens you. It strengthens your future self, which is you creating and moving and choosing something that's challenging and doing something that you don't want to do, but you know that you should do. You know, if you look at like success and fulfillment and deep connection, all of them live on the other side of delayed gratification, not instant gratification. And so you've got to ask yourself, like, are you raising your dopamine levels or are you raising your standards in life? You know, you've probably heard about the famous marshmallow experiment, which was done in like 1972. And it was where they had children come in and they offered them one marshmallow right now. Or if they waited 15 minutes, they could get 2 marshmallows. And so they put one marshmallow and they said, hey, if you want to eat it now, you can. They walked out of the room. And they said, but if you wait 15 minutes, when I come back, I'll give you 2 marshmallows. Most kids took 1 marshmallow now. I've heard this study before, but I didn't realize this. There's another layer to this study. The kids who chose delayed gratification and waited 15 minutes and got 2, they followed up with them later on in life. They grew up with higher SAT scores, better health, and greater emotional control. So basically the study proved that your ability to delay gratification predicts long-term success and happiness in life. And so you have to understand time is always working. Like time is always passing. As we're sitting here and you're listening to me, time's passing. And it's either working for you or it's working against you. And I've said this many times in podcasts before, but time is either your best friend or it's your worst enemy. It's either your best friend. Either you fast forward 10 years from today or 20 years from today, and you're like, damn, I'm so glad that I did everything that I did over the past 10 years or 20 years. And it's your best friend. Or you chose bad decisions, and in 20 years, it's going to be your worst enemy. But time always wins. It always catches up. So if you invest into your skills and your relationships and your habits and getting your money right, all of it will be better. But if you waste your time, if you wake up, just not taking action, not doing what you want to, delaying it with a whole bunch of laters, yeah, time's not going to be your best friend later on in life. So you've got to choose, because time doesn't lie. Time just reflects. That's the best part about it. It just reflects. You got to check the scoreboard of life. How's it looking for you? Are you stacking all the wins in your category? Is there more wins in your life? Or are you stacking in the losses category? There was a book that's called Your Brain is a Time Machine, and it's by neuroscientist Dean Bonumano. And he explains that the brain's internal clock is constantly comparing timelines. And this is how it works. When we procrastinate, we're literally tricking our brain into feeling like our future self, who we know exists in the future, is a stranger, which explains why we abandon what we say we want. It's not laziness. It's acting like your future self doesn't exist. You've got to become aware, like, oh my God, if I do this, this is what my future will be. If I do that, this is what my future is going to be. And you've got to make the right decisions from there. It's acting like your actions don't have long-term consequences and then going, you know what? They actually do. My future self does exist. I'm going to meet them one day. I'm going to look in the mirror and I'm going to meet my future self in 10 years. What are they going to look like? What are they going to feel like? What is their entire life going to look like? You're going to meet them. Don't act like they're not there. And so when you look at do it now and this idea of do it now, what I want you to do is I want you to start thinking about, because we all know when there's something that you need to do, there's something which you're like, I've got to do this. I really don't want to do it. When we have that feeling, do it now. It's just like, I got to do it now. When I have the feeling of wanting to delay, when I have the feeling of wanting to push it into later, do it now. Boom. You just got to do it. And what happens is you start to actually train the muscle of taking action. If you're not taking the action that you want to in your life, the reason why most of the time is because your do it now muscle, your action muscle is really, really weak. Your instant gratification, not taking action, backing away from fear, staying in your comfort zone, that muscle, really, really strong. So if you stop going that direction, that muscle will weaken. If you start going with the do it now muscle, then taking action is going to actually start to become a habit for you. But it doesn't happen in like a week. It doesn't happen in 2 weeks. Habits take anywhere between 60 to 100 days on average to create. And so if you just think to myself, every time I think I'm going to delay, I'm just going to do it now. Every time I think I'm going to delay, I'm just going to do it now. You'll start to build the muscle of actually taking action. And so here's what you want to do. Number one, you want to call out your laters. Write them all down. Write out all the laters that you've been whispering to yourself. I'll take care of my health later. I'll reach out to them later. I'll start my dream project later. And then circle the one of the laters that hurts the most. Like the one where you're like, this one needs to happen, but I keep delaying it. That right there is your entry point. That's the one wherever you feel any sort of action that you need to take with that one, just do it. Do it now, do it now, do it now. Second thing you need to do is you need to decide right now, like choose your pain. There is the pain of discipline, which happens today, in the moment when you take the action. And then there's the pain of regret, which is tomorrow or 5 years or 10 years down the road. Both of them cost something. You need to make the decision, which one are you going to choose? Choose your pain. It's either the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Which one do you want? So there was a study that was done at Stanford University by Kelly McGonigal. I don't know. Sorry, Kelly, I'm destroying your name. And it was called The Willpower Instinct. And it showed that self-control is finite, which means you don't have self-control all day long and you get less and less of it throughout the day, but it's a trainable resource. And the more that we choose disciplined action, the easier it becomes because we're literally rewiring our brain's default response. So if you're the type of person that delays, your default response over the course of your lifetime has been to delay. And so the more that you do it over and over and over again, you take disciplined action, the easier it becomes and you actually rewire your brain's default response to taking action. Next thing, just be messy. Take one messy step after another. Don't try to be perfect. Don't try to be pretty. Just move forward. Send the email, make the call, create the damn Canva post and put it on Instagram. Sit with your kid and actually be there and put your phone away. Done is better than perfect every single time. Just do something. Get your ass up and start moving. And so let me leave you with this, okay? Later is the most seductive form of self-sabotage. It tells you that you have time when in reality you really don't. It tells you that it'll be easier later when it won't. It tells you that you're not ready when you never will be. You just have to take action. So your new mantra needs to be, if it matters, I do it now. If it matters, I do it now. If it matters, I do it now. It's not hustle culture. This isn't like I'm going to work myself to the bone. More than anything else, it's self-respect. Because you're saying, I want this life. I deserve this life. And I believe in my future self so much that I'm going to do the hard thing right now. That's one of the highest forms of self-respect and self-love. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. YouTube thinks for some reason that you want to watch this video right here. The algorithm's picking this one for you specifically. So click it and watch it. And if you want to make sure that you never miss any more videos, hit that button right there to subscribe. Welcome to today's episode of the Mindset Mentor Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Dial. If you have not yet done so, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another podcast episode. And if you're out there and you love this podcast, you'll probably love my book that just came out or is in the process of coming out. You can pre-order it right now. All you have to do is go to robdial.com/book. It is called Level Up: How to Get Focused, Stop Procrastinating, and Upgrade Your Life. So if you love this podcast, I guarantee you're going to love that because that was 3 years of work and 16 rounds of edits. So once again, if you go to robdial.com/book, you can go ahead and pre-order it there. and I'll see you at the website. Today, I'm going to be talking about how to be happy, because essentially all we really want is to be happy, don't we? But then when you actually start to think about it, what is happiness? Like if I were to say, what is happiness to you? What you say might be different than what I say. What somebody else says might be different than both what we say. But when you really start to think about happiness, what I've come to find is happiness is a state of mind that exists when desires are absent. That's kind of what I have come up with. And I'm going to talk to you today about how to be more happy. And this is actually inspired by a lot of stuff I've been reading by a guy named Naval Ravikant. And there's a few things that he actually says in quotes that I'm going to say throughout this. One of them that I really love that he says is that peace is happiness at rest, and happiness is peace in motion. And so let me say that again. Peace is happiness at rest, and happiness is peace in motion. And another thing that he says is when we're calm, we're happy, and when we're happy, we're at peace. And so when I say happiness and I say peace throughout this episode, just know that both of them are quite interchangeable as I start talking to you. When we talk about happiness, though, what does happiness mean? I think that everyone knows what happiness feels like, and we might have trouble actually grasping what it is and putting it into words. And I would say that our main barrier to happiness is desire. And I'm going to talk a lot about desire today, what it is, how it holds you back, the problem with it, all of that stuff. But the thing that I've learned is that growing up, I had a lot of desires. Desires for traveling, desires for success, desires for money, all these desires. And the funny thing is, the older that I get and the more that I get of all these things, the more I realize that they actually don't do shit for my happiness or my fulfillment. They're all great and they're fine, but none of them actually change my internal state. And so if you think to yourself, oh, I'll stop being anxious when I get $1 million, or I'll be happier when I get $1 million, it won't be true. You'll just be a millionaire who's anxious and unhappy, which, I guess is better than being broke and being anxious and unhappy. But the internal state will not be changed by the external environment. That's what you have to realize. And your main barrier to being happy is your desire. And sure, you can want all of those things. You can want to become a millionaire, and you could become a millionaire, but wouldn't you rather just be happier in the process of becoming a millionaire? Of course. Because you could be unhappy going in having that desire, or you could be happy doing it, right? So with desire is the feeling inside of you internally that something is missing. And it's the idea that you need something to make you happy, to make you joyful, to make you calm, to make you peaceful. You need something. And until you get that thing, you will not be right. Another thing that Naval says is desire is a contract that you make with yourself to be unhappy until you get what you want, right? And so you think to yourself like, oh, there's this thing that I want, and I am unhappy until I get that thing. When you want something, you're basically making a deal with yourself that you're going to be unhappy until you get it. And so we have to understand our desires, and it's okay to desire things. Like we live in this 3D human realm, and desire is a big piece of what we have. But instead of just desiring every single thing at every single moment, why don't we actually choose what we desire? Because each thing that we want, if we have a lot of different wants, I want money, and I want a successful business, and I want my children to be better, and I want my wife to do this, and I want my employees to do this, and I want my boss to stop being an asshole, and I want this, and I want this, and this. Each want is just a choice to be unhappy. And I think the biggest mistake that we make is thinking that we'll be happy when we get certain things. And so what happens is we think, okay, I'm not happy yet, but getting this thing is going to make me happy. And I'm going to talk about it today, but nothing externally can make you happy. Externally is just external, but happiness is internal. And so the only way to become happy is to actually internally make yourself happy, to decide to make yourself happy. Because what we've learned somehow, I don't know how it happens, through society, through our parents, through teachers, through friends, through mentors, we get hooked on things. We get hooked on the wanting things. And we're hooked on the idea that something outside of us will make us happy. And I'm here to tell you that that's an absolute lie. There's nothing that you could get. You could get the biggest house, you could get a brand new Ferrari, you could travel the world. None of that shit is going to make you happy, right? Not having that thing is not the reason why you're unhappy. Getting that thing will not make you happy. And so think about this for a second, because it's really a conundrum you get stuck in, right? Not having that thing is not the problem. Not being happy is not the problem. The desire for something that you don't have is the problem. And the crazy part about that is you're creating the desire. So let me take you through a real quick journey, right? Desire is the problem. Desire is the thing that's holding you back from being happy. And if we take another step back, I'm not happy because I don't have this thing. And when I get this thing, I will be happy. That's how most people think. So the desire is the actual problem, because getting that thing is not going to make you happy. And the crazy part is that you're creating the desire. So the craziest part is that the only problems in your life are the problems that you're creating. Which means if we could master our minds, there would be no problems and there would only be peace and happiness. And it took me like 30 something years to learn this, is that the only problems in my life are the things that I'm perceiving as problems. I want this thing, and the fact that I don't have it is a problem. I want this to be this way, and the fact that it's not this way is a problem. I want, her to act this way, and the fact that she's not acting this way is a problem. The craziest part about this whole thing is that the only problems that exist are the problems that we're creating in our minds. Now you'll be like, I'm trying to figure out how I can pay my bills. Okay, well, fucking figure it out. That's not a problem. The problem is that you want the money right now to be able to pay those bills. And the desire for wanting that money is the thing that's actually creating the problem. Okay, you don't have it. Well, that's just a circumstance. That's not a problem that you don't have the money. The problem is that you think that the getting of the money is going to make you happier, or that it's going to solve all of your problems. No. That's just a circumstance. You don't have the money to pay your bills. Okay, well, figure out a way to go make yourself more valuable in the marketplace, or to go out and actually drive Uber, or to do something to make money to be able to pay your bills, right? So it's really kind of crazy when you actually fully grasp this, is that the only problems that exist in your life are the problems that you're creating in your mind. Like, let it set in. Think of all of your problems and then realize that they're just circumstances that exist, and your perception of them is the thing that's making them a quote unquote problem. And so let's go back to happiness, right? How do we get happy? Well, you feel happy when you don't feel like something is missing in your life. You feel happy when you don't feel like something is missing in your life. You feel at peace. You feel content. Because we often think, I need this, I need that, I need this thing, I need that. And it could be, it could be wanting a new car or a house or a vacation, or it can be wanting someone in your life to be different than they are, or to act differently, or to do something differently. And we could think to ourselves like, well, I would be happier if they stopped doing these things to me. I would be happier if she stopped acting this way. I would be happier if my boss wasn't such an asshole, right? They are not the problem. Not having that thing, or not having the situation be what you want it to be, is not the problem. You and your thoughts are the problem. And so what happens is we get stuck in these cycles of wanting things. And the more things that you want, the more problems that you are then creating, because when you want them, the desire is distancing you from that thing. And you're saying, I will not be happy until I get this thing. If we go back to that quote, which is, desire is a contract that you make with yourself to be unhappy until you get that thing. But when we feel like we have everything that we need, we can stop worrying, and we can stop thinking about the past or the future. And that's when we allow ourselves the space to be happy. Think about that for a moment. Not wanting things creates more peace internally. Listen, I'm not saying that you should just lose all of your motivation and you should just sit on the couch and play video games all day, because that's just, the ultimate state of happiness and peace and not wanting. We do have to live this human life. I do get it. And in this human life, there is some cool shit that we could do, and there's stuff that we could buy, and there's experiences that we could have. But the more wants that we create, the more that we're deciding that we want to be unhappy. And so what I like to say is, instead of having all of these wants, which most of them aren't even really that important, decide which wants you want. Like which ones you want to keep, which ones you're going to want to get rid of. And when you reach the point of letting go of as many things as possible, when you can reach the point of hopefully sitting there, enjoying your cup of coffee and realizing there's nothing that you need to do, there's nothing that you need to be, there's nothing that you need to accomplish. And you can reach that point, you feel really quite calm inside. And to me, happiness isn't about having good thoughts or bad thoughts or being positive and not being negative. It's not about people not dying in your life or things not changing. It's not about all of those external circumstances. It's about just deciding not to want so many things and to think that getting those things are going to make you happy, especially not wanting the things outside of yourself. It's about finding the gratitude that you have right now, no matter what situation you're in. It's like that phrase that the rabbi said, and I can't pronounce his name or else I would, but he says, happiness is not having what you want, but wanting what you have. Like when you really understand that happiness is not having what you want, but wanting what you have. The less that I want, like the less things that I want to go out and do and feel and buy and accomplish and all that stuff, the more I can accept things just as they actually are. And the key of that is the acceptance of life as it is. The more that I accept, and I'm just like, oh, that's how that person is. That's how the circumstance is. That's how the bank account is. That's how this thing is. The more that you can accept these things, the less my mind races. So the more that I can accept, the less my mind races. The more that you can accept, the more that your mind will be able to calm. And I don't think happiness is I don't think happiness is really that hard to achieve. I think that we make it way harder than it needs to be. And I think happiness comes from not suffering, and suffering comes from desire. And so there's a difference between pain and suffering. Pain in your life will just happen. Suffering is you choosing to go through that pain over and over and over again, and not wanting things and not worrying too much about what has been or what will be or what's coming up or what you've done in the past and all of that. When you can just remove yourself from the external world that we've been taught to, it's really kind of hard because it's so the opposite of what we're taught since childhood, is not wanting things, not being attached to things, not investing so much of our energy and so much of our worth into the external world, but looking inside of ourselves, because looking outside of ourselves for anything is a mistake, because happiness doesn't come from the outside things. Happiness is a feeling. It is a state of mind, and feelings and state of minds are internal. And so we keep thinking we'll be happy when I get this thing or I get that thing, and that's a mistake that we keep making. So believing that something out there, that you'll finally get that thing and it'll make you happy forever, is a lie. Like a lot of people, they're like, well, I just need to get a bigger house, and once I get my dream house, then I'll be happy. And it's like, no, you won't. When you get your dream house, you're going to feel exactly the same, but it's just going to be more space, and then eventually a couple years down the road, you're going to be looking at another house, right? Happiness is just an internal job. When you want something, you're basically agreeing to be unhappy until you get it. Why don't you just say, I don't want any more things. I don't need any more things. I'm happy just the way that I am. And what's kind of crazy about it is that it seems so counterintuitive, but as you want less things, more things start working out for you the way that you actually wanted them to in the first place before you decided to release yourself from wanting all these things. It's like synchronicities just kind of start lining up for you. And we want things all day and we wonder why we're not happy. And it's like, well, you're not happy because you keep wanting more. Happiness comes from inside, not outside. And so when you realize this, you realize, like I said earlier in this podcast episode, I told you I'll talk about this, is that happiness is a choice. And it's actually a skill set that you can develop. Developing a skill set takes time and it takes attention though. It's not just like you're immediately going to be happy, because we've been spending the past 25, 30, 40 years of our lives wanting things. And so our brain is kind of wired to want things. And so it takes, if you're going to develop this skill set of being happy, and that's a different way to look at life, is that happiness is a skill set. It's going to take time and it's going to take attention. And now I can already hear people getting pissed off when I say happiness is a choice, because they're like, well, but that might be nice in your life, but you don't know what my life looks like. You don't know what I've been through. You don't know what's happening around me. You don't know about the people that I have around me. Cool. Okay, watch this real quick. Let's just try to make this as stupid simple as we possibly can. Like, let's just take life, right? We're going to take life right here. Let's make it stupid simple. You're born, right? You're born. We're all born into this world. And then throughout birth and death, we have all kinds of experiences. We see things, we hear things, we feel things, we touch things, all of this. We have all of these sensory experiences from birth until death. And then one day we die. Is that correct? Like if we're looking at this from like a 100,000 foot view, that's what it is. We're born, we have all kinds of experiences. We see things, hear things, feel things, all of that. And then we die, right? Those are all just sensory inputs. That's correct, right? So how we choose to interpret those experiences in our life is up to us. And how we interpret them will dictate whether we're happy or whether we're pissed off or whether we're sad or whether we're mad or whether we're a victim, all of that. So what it comes down to is we all have birth, we all have death, we all have sensory experiences. How we choose to interpret those experiences is fully up to us. That's the best part. We get to choose. And so it shows you it's not about what happens to you, but it's about how you choose to interpret them. You can choose to be happy. There is somebody, if you're pissed off and you're like, no, my life is shit, all of that stuff, there is somebody else in this world whose life is worse than you that is happier than you. Guarantee it. I'm just going to say this one more time, right? If you think to yourself, my life sucks, I don't have what I want, then the reason why I'm not happy is because I don't have these things and because my life sucks. There is somebody in this world that has less than you that is happier than you, which proves to you that it's not about what you have or don't have, it's what you choose to think about your life and how you choose to interpret your experiences. So you can decide, like literally right now from this moment on, nothing outside of me is going to control my emotions. It's just, my life is going to be the way that it is. And as things happen, things will happen. And don't expect life to be a certain way for you. Life is just life. And when you understand that, there is no reason to be happy or sad or to be any of that. And when you stop feeling like there's something missing, you're left with happiness. It's this really wild thing. Like when you stop wanting things, you just sit there and you're like, oh, nice. Well, that's pretty awesome. So don't worry about how things should be or shouldn't be and all that stuff. Just focus on your own experiences and start changing how you interpret them so that you can make yourself happier. Now, let's talk about peace for just a minute, okay? Real happiness comes from being at peace. Like, I think that when you are happy is when you internally are more at peace. Now, you'll never be here 100% of the time. Promise you that. You're going to be happy and peaceful, and then someone's going to say something, and then you're going to, someone's going to cut you off, and you're going to flick them off and honk your horn, and you're going to be like, oh my God, what am I doing? You're going to lose yourself many times over your lifetime. But most of the time, happiness comes from just accepting things as the way they are and not wanting to change what's around us. And it's about really being present and allowing ourselves to be comfortable in the present moment. Because when you're comfortable being present, it's like the door opens up and peace walks in. Because you're just like, I'm here. And in being here and not wanting things, I can be present. And it's like the reason why a lot of people struggle with meditation. I've been there many times. This morning I did a 30-minute meditation. The first 15 minutes was me thinking about all the shit I had to do today. And then I realized I spent 15 minutes thinking about all the stuff I had to do today. And instead of getting myself mad and pissed and, oh, what did I do? I just wasted 15 minutes. I just brought myself back to my body, to my breath, feeling into my body and just feeling my heart rate. And really what it came down to is I was wanting to be out of that meditation, out of that moment so I could get things done, right? We all find ourselves there. And it really comes down to how can we just allow ourselves to be more present? Because we all want moments that make us feel alive and to feel present, don't we? Like we want to travel, we want amazing experiences. You want to watch your team win the Super Bowl. But here's what's crazy. Wanting those moments can actually pull us out of the present moment. And it's really crazy when you actually think about it. We want things that make us feel present. We want things to make us feel present. Winning the Super Bowl, our team winning the Super Bowl, that would make you feel really present, really excited in the moment. You wouldn't be thinking about anything else except for how excited you were in that moment. When you're in Greece and you're having a glass of wine and there's a beautiful sunset, you're very present. You're watching the sunset, you're tasting the wine, you're looking at it and you're like, holy shit, this is amazing. We want things that make us feel present. But the wanting of those things steals our presence right now in this moment. And so we're always chasing after the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And this constant chase makes us start to feel anxious. And so what I've been trying to do lately, you can try this if you want, completely up to you. I've been trying to make myself really bored lately. Like yesterday I meditated and then I made coffee and I sat on the couch and I looked out my back window for 45 minutes, doing nothing, literally nothing. There wasn't any music that was playing. I wasn't reading. I was sitting on the couch. I was looking out my back porch. My dog was sitting next to me, and I was just sitting there doing nothing. Have you ever tried doing that before? Not doing anything, not reading, not listening to music. It's hard, isn't it? And the reason why is because we're always anxious about having to do something, having something that needs to come up next. And this anxiety makes us really unhappy as well. And it's just all of these new thoughts just running through our heads, running through our heads. And so we often feel really troubled because we can't just sit quietly alone. You know, there's a quote, I can't remember who it's from, but it says all of the problems in the world come from man's inability to sit alone in a room by himself. And so really what it comes down to is if you want to be happy, you have to be more comfortable with boredom, with nothing, with not needing to do something, with not needing to be something, without having to achieve something, and realizing that desire, want, all of those things are stealing your happiness. And by wanting and desiring something, you're creating the problem, which means that all of your problems that exist are the problems you're creating in your own mind. And so really what it comes down to, if you want to be happier, you just have to realize that it's already here. Right now, in this moment, you just have to decide to be happy. It's easier said than done. I get it. But it's a skill set and it's a choice. And if it's a skill set, it means it takes time, it takes attention, it takes practice. And if it's a choice, it means that you're in control. So that's what I got for you for today's episode. If you love this episode, please share it on your Instagram stories. Tag me in it, Rob Dial Jr., ROBDIAL JR. We only grow because you guys continue to share this podcast every single time I put out an episode and share it with new people and share it on Instagram, all that stuff. So I greatly appreciate it every single time that you do that. And with that, I'm going to leave the same way I leave you every single episode. Make it your mission to make someone else's day better. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have an amazing day.